So good evening again, once more to you all, to this series of talks devoted to Catalonia, Catalan culture, and several of its manifestations. And first of all, again, I would like to thank the Estonian Literary Museum and our sponsors for giving us the chance to be here today, and also the previous weeks and next week, which will be the last of the talks of this series. Today, I am here to share with you some thoughts about the Catalan linguistic worldview, or worldviews, as I have chosen to name this presentation. And, well, you will see now why I decided to use the plural rather than the singular form of the word. When I first started thinking about how to approach, how to tackle presentation today, I was mainly concerned about terminology, about definition of these concepts such as linguistic worldview. Was, for example, talks about language, right? More precisely, he refers to lexicogrammatical structures, for example, and patterns of usage that encode interpretations of reality that symbolize, shape, and construct speakers' cultural experience. So we're talking about language allowing us to experience culture, but inevitably, I also thought that language is unequivocally related to identity. So what really we have here is a combination of certain elements that is really, really hard just to talk about them independently. A linguistic community, according to Ottenheimer and Pine, is a group of people who share a single language variety and the rules for using it in everyday communication, and who focus on their identity around that language. I believe that any speaker of a given language, looking at this definition, will probably agree. But I believe that a speaker of the Catalan language might have something else to say about it. And you will now see what I am referring to. First of all, I would like to show you a video. It's just the introduction. I haven't been able to find a better translation. It is originally in Catalan, but I think that with the automatic subtitles, you will get its main idea. Nevertheless, I will, of course, provide background for it afterwards. So if you wait for a second, I will just now play the video.
Buenas noches. Hoy, 23 de abril de 2103, es una fecha que pasará a la historia. Ha muerto Remei Viladelmich Fonolleres, la última hablante nativa de la lengua catalana. Se la conocía como Avia Remei, abuela remedios en español. La situación de la lengua parece que no tuvo solución. Remei tenía 93 años y estaba considerada un tesoro vivo de la humanidad por la UNESCO. Con ella se apaga la voz de un pueblo milenario del sur de Europa. La Avia Remei era un símbolo de la resistencia cultural de los pueblos europeos con lenguas en vías de extinción.
Sí, la llengua està en emergència lingüística. Això vol dir que estem de reculada. Això no vol dir ni que el català s'hagi de morir demà passat, ni que no hi hagi ningú que el parli, ni res per l'estil.
A mi l'expressió emergència no m'agrada. Crec que tots hem de ser conscients que estem en una situació delicada, però que és
A
reversible.
pesar de la persecución sistemática desde el siglo XVII, renació de las cenizas e incluso sobrevivió a la dictadura franquista. Sin embargo, al principio del siglo XXI, los mismos catalanes dejaron de mostrar interés por defender su lengua. La estocada de muerte fue en la década del 2040, cuando Remei y tantos catalanes de su generación, nacidos a partir del 2010, no la enseñaron a sus hijos. Remei deja 3 hijas y 7 nietos, pero ninguno de ellos habla catalán. Nos quedan las palabras que dejó para la posteridad en un documental de hace unos años.
Pues mira, abans tothom parlava català, tothom, però els nens van deixar d'aprendre, tenien por, tenien vergonya de que no els assenyalessin i no els discriminessin, i tenien por de que els tractessin per provincians. I ves què? Escolta, la gent es va anar fent gran, es van anar morint, i només veig quedar jo parlant català. I mira, així hem acabat.
Okay, I wanted to use this as an introduction because I was simply wondering what happens when the experience, when the culture, when the identity cannot be fully lived in a chosen language. How is it that your language grants you only partial access to a reality? To fully understand what it is to speak Catalan, I think that resorting to this video was a good way to introduce today's topic. Of course, it is a mockumentary. It is a false documentary about the disappearance of Catalan in a near future. But it does, however, hint at the fact that, that Catalan is disappearing in certain areas. There is a process of language shift going on in many Catalan-speaking areas. It echoes a perceived, and not only perceived, but also registered evidence that the use of Catalan is receding. And it embodies the fears of a language community, and it necessarily affects the way the world is seen through a threatened language. To provide more context today, I thought that the best was first to give you a brief overview of the Catalan language. And then, of course, we will talk about the linguistic worldview through the lens of a language that is not fully operational. Well, I have talked about linguistic shift, I have talked about minorist language, but first of all, maybe we should take a look just at the historical process that has placed the Catalan language in the position that it finds itself nowadays. Well, first of all, there's even some disputes about its belonging. It is indeed, Catalan it is indeed a Western Romance language from the Occitano-Romance branch, according to linguists such as Beck, or the Ibero-Romance branch, according to Spanish linguists such as Menéndez Pidal. But if we look at the evolution of the Catalan language, well, its origins are similar to other Ibero-Roman languages. Already in the 11th century, according to experts such as Moran, we have the first macaronic texts, combining, so to speak, Latin and something that could be already labeled as Catalan. By the end of the century, Romance seems to take over. From the 11th to the 15th centuries, we have a period of expansion. Catalan is being exported from Old Catalonia to Valencia, Balearic Islands, even to the town of Alghero in Sardinia. The Low Middle Ages is the golden age of the Catalan language, and you might have heard about humanists, poets, writers such as Ramon Llull, Ausiàs March, or Joanot Martorell. Joanot Martorell is particularly famous because he's the author of a well-known medieval novel, Tirant lo Blanc. It then starts a process of decadence. The causes are extremely complex. We won't get into them, but indeed there is one particular historic episode, the War of Spanish Succession, and the restrictive laws concerning the Catalan language and the Catalan culture that supposed a severe blow to the normal development of the language and the culture. The 19th century saw a revival. In Catalan it's called Renaixença. It's a rather romantic movement of revival, of recovering of the language, that it lasted more or less until 1939. 1939, of course, is the year of the victory of Franco in the Civil War, and starting from that time, the Catalan language and culture were then crushed at an unprecedented level. 1939 to 1975, which is the death of Franco, saw also several linguistic, cultural, and migratory policies. And this is very important because they strengthen the trend towards bilingualism. We can say that Catalonia and Catalan-speaking areas started to be fully bilingual thanks to the social engineering policies of Franco's times that promoted the migration of other Spanish non-Catalan-speaking people to Catalonia. Catalonia being the powerhouse of Spain back then, with a heavy industrial fabric. And it is then when monolingualism is finally broken and we can start speaking of a fully bilingual community, Spanish, Catalan. Of course, the current situation is absolutely different since the Spanish transition to democracy, let's say between the death of the dictator up to the first autonomic elections. We have seen devolution of self-government, which wouldn't be that important, but of course self-government has provided the institutionalization of Catalan as an official language, as a language of education, as a language of the mass media. In that sense, Catalan works perfectly as a mass media language. It has its own regional television, for example. Teaching of Catalan is mandatory in schools, and in some other talk we could effectively analyze whether the survival of Catalan is guaranteed by the fact that it's being taught in schools. I can give you a spoiler. The answer is no. But of course, we also have a regional government that invests heavily in the promotion of Catalan. Linguistic policy, linguistic normalization are terms that are now current currency in our environment. The regional government particularly likes demolinguistics, and they issue lots of studies about the situation of Catalan, how widely it is spoken, etc., etc. It might seem not relevant, but the fact is that Catalans are quite used to this kind of very detailed service about the state, the health of the language, and every time they appear and they show us that Catalan is receding, we feel terribly bad about it and we think what it can be done to avoid this situation. But on the other hand, we have several factors that explain why Catalan language is not doing as well as it should. First of all, of course, in the last few years, Spanish, which is one of the languages widely spoken in Catalonia, has become a truly world language or global language, on a par with English or Mandarin. I think we all know the amount of speakers that Spanish has, the influence it has, how many students wish to learn Command Spanish as a second language, as a foreign language. Digital mass media, digital social media are also prevalent, and simply Catalan language is not doing very well, given the preference of internet users for, again, global languages such as Spanish or English. We are also as well in a post-transition scenario, right? I was talking about the Spanish transition. We can already talk about a post-transition scenario. And we have this linguistic historical forgetting. There is languishing of the feeling of grievance or damage inflicted historically to Catalan. New generations already do not consider that. They have somehow forgotten the blows that the Francoist dictatorship inflicted on Catalan. There are also simply ongoing language shift processes, which are very acute in places such as northern Catalonia, which belongs to France, and Catalonian there is being replaced by French. In Alghero, in Italy, the same situation, only with the Italian language. But we also have like places like southern Valencian community or the Balearic Islands, where Catalan is being replaced by Spanish. All this has provoked a shift in the way linguists, social linguists, look at linguistic conflict. And of course, we have now realized that we are talking of a purely bilingual society. Bilingual society meaning that there are very, very few speakers of only Catalan. And I think this is really what summarizes the question. The fact that when we speak about a bilingual Catalonia, we are speaking about people who command Spanish and Catalan, or only Spanish, but not only Catalan. That is a situation that it does not happen anymore. Well, according to UNESCO, Standard Catalan, this is the name that UNESCO has for the language. Yeah, I was a bit surprised too. Standard Catalan, never thought of it in that sense. Well, the language is potentially vulnerable. And if you look at the scale, the language is almost safe. Almost safe. Or so they say at the UNESCO. The perceptions of a Catalan speaker in Catalonia might differ. But here is when we enter in the question of the linguistic worldview. So, as some social linguists have already detected, increasing population mobility, Argenteses, the spread of world languages, the emergence of English as a global language are all emerging trends, and as a consequence, the number of multilingual individuals is growing, either organically or the result of targeted policies such as those of the EU. Speakers confronted with such an environment are continually forced to make choices. And here is really what I wanted to talk about today. Bilingualism, multilingualism, from the point of view of the individual speaker, not necessarily reflects the situation of the linguistic community. I am entirely bilingual. Many people like me are entirely bilingual. But this does not mean that we suffer from a fragmented, linguistically speaking, worldview, simply because life cannot be fully carried out in one language. So, as a speaker of Catalan in Catalonia, I am constantly confronted with choices. And this is why I named the conference today Linguistic Worldviews. And this is why I decided not to speak about certain peculiarities of the Catalan language that, of course, differ from Spanish or from Portuguese, because, of course, Catalan, being a different language, has these cultural terms that are hard to translate. But I believe that the situation is a bit different, and this is really what informs my worldview when I use Catalan. The fact that I have to make choices, and the fact that I have a fragmented vision of the world through my language. So let's take me as an imagined speaker of Catalan in Catalonia, and as this archetypical Catalan, I will be faced with choices such as the following. Well, first of all, of course, we have individual choices. I must say now here that all this last part of the presentation is very much informed by social linguistics. The Catalan School of Social Linguistics is a very powerful one, and I believe this is also a consequence of the abnormal linguistic state we live in. So basically, my individual choices as a speaker are related to things such as linguistic convergence, matters of self-hatred or prestige, passive bilingualism, or even linguistic ideology. So, as a Catalan, linguistic convergence means that usually when I speak to someone who is a Spanish-speaking person, I will tend to change my language and speak Spanish too. So this can be either a conscious choice or an unconscious one. But it also tells us about the fact that there is a bilingualism, which in any case is unequal. Some people have spoken of passive bilingualism, which involves that one of the people in the conversation speaks in Catalan, the other speaks in Spanish. That is an ideal for some experts, but this is something that usually does not happen. The reality being that Catalan speakers converge towards Spanish. This, of course, is related to things such as self-hatred. Catalan was believed to be a prestigious language, was believed to be a tool for social mobility for many years, but this is not happening so much anymore, up to the point that some people have attitudes of self-hatred towards the language. Meaning, not necessarily that you hate the language per se, but of course that you feel that your language maybe is not apt to deal with certain aspects of your life, or that by speaking Catalan, you might have less chances of so many things. This is also related to linguistic ideology. To speak Catalan sometimes is also some kind of ideological declaration. And again, it's an individual choice, and it's a conscious effort made by Catalan speakers when faced with this bilingualism. Other phenomena that are pretty common amongst Catalan speakers are things such as code switching or double voicing. We were just discussing with one of the persons present here today that code switching, of course, is a very common phenomenon, not only in Catalan, but in Catalan, it has the peculiarity that it's usually only with Spanish and in the same communicative event. So it doesn't mean necessarily that you are talking to another person in Spanish. It means that you insert fragments of conversation in Spanish while you're speaking Catalan. And of course, double voicing is another phenomenon. Generally, it's the appropriation of speeches in other languages, but in Catalan, it's related to cultural memes in the sense of Dawkins, in the sense of Richard Dawkins. Many people, when they speak Catalan, all of a sudden say some words that they have read in a book in Spanish, or they refer to a film they have seen in Spanish and they quote these words in another language, in this case being Spanish. All this just shows that the linguistic worldview, in a sense, is rather bilingual, and it's very, very difficult to avoid this situation. Or let's talk about very, very pragmatic cases, okay? A normal day in Catalonia, in a Catalan, well, supposedly Catalan-speaking environment, might involve choices that are related somehow to the fight for linguistic rights. Think of situations such as the healthcare system. There are doctors who do not speak Catalan. You speak to them in Spanish, despite the fact that legislation gives you the right and should guarantee you the possibility of being served, of being taken care of in your own language. The judicial system is even worse in that sense, because civil workers of the judicial system come from all places in Spain, and basically you cannot denounce, you cannot file a lawsuit against someone in Catalan, for example. Also, government branches, think of sending a letter, etc. Chances are that you will not be able to speak in Catalan. When you try to speak in Catalan and people answer to you in Spanish, inevitably, there's always a situation of linguistic conflict. Now, the word linguistic conflict sounds terrible. No one fights each other physically over sending a letter in a post office, naturally. But it speaks of a situation in which there is an awareness on the side of the speaker towards their linguistic choices. I have finally added things like private business or hospitality industry. And this is very interesting because, for example, hospitality industry, I'm talking about restaurants, are very sensible to this issue. And even some great multinational branches or food chains have started labeling their products in Catalan for fearing of losing clients. So it is a bit paradoxical that private business sometimes is more sensitive to these linguistic issues than, say, government branches or the judicial system. So all this is to tell you that when I think about the linguistic worldview of a Catalan, I'm thinking of a worldview that is mainly informed by metalinguistic awareness. I simply need to think of Catalan as a system, as a linguistic system that it is coexisting with another. And I am sure that people who speak other languages are not fully aware of the fact that their languages coexist with each other in such a regular basis. Not all is bad, of course. Catalan language enjoys a very powerful school of social linguistics that takes care and closely analyzes, scrutinizes all these dynamics. And of course, we also have a well-developed state-supported language policy and linguistic normalization strategies that are a model for several other countries. For example, there are many studies, many research works on how Quebec and Catalonia developed their linguistic policies. And finally, all this speaks of Catalan language being an important marker of identity, up to the point that in a place where there are no ethnic differences, to speak Catalan historically has been considered to be Catalan. And this can be seen also, for example, in the migrant population of Catalonia. There are people who voluntarily choose to learn Catalan, despite the fact that they really don't need Catalan to survive in Catalonia. And they mostly justify it as an act of willingness to belong to the linguistic community, because intuitively it is understood that to speak Catalan is also a way to be Catalan, to feel Catalan. So despite everything, I would say that, well, indeed, Catalan language is a symbol of the in-group, and it is a very important marker of our identity. So I would like to thank you all for your attention. I made it